A warm welcome, children, back again to the class of biology, and I'm sure you must have enjoyed and relaxed during the vacations, and you must have studied also and completed all your assignments. Of course, angiosperms, the lesson on angiosperms could not be uploaded during the vacations because I had my own assignments to complete. So anyways, I'm teaching you this today, and later on whatever questions you were left with related to angiosperms, you can complete those questions and then keep your work ready. Right, so today we will start with angiosperms. All this while in the previous classes we've talked about the plants, the cryptogames and the phanerogames, right? And today we will start with, the angiosperms, which are flowering plants, right? What are angiosperms? Flowering plants. All the plants that you see having flowers are angiosperms, right? So angiosperms, they are seed plants in which seeds are formed inside fruits, right? Seeds are formed inside fruits. That means that in angiosperms the seeds are not naked seeded, right? So seeds are formed inside fruits, right? And another thing is that the sporophylls that you've always studied about in the previous classes, here the sporophylls are organized into flowers, right? So the sporophylls are organized into flower, right? So that is why they are known as flowering plants, right? So they are not naked seeded, they are flowering plants. Their seeds are covered with fruit, right? So whatever fruits you eat, you find seeds inside them, right? So those are angiosperms. The seeds are not exposed and they are covered with the fruit, right? So basically in class 10 you studied about fertilization. Even in the lower classes in 7th you studied about fertilization in plants, right? And in that you studied about ovules and ovary, right? The female part of the plant you studied, we will do today also in slightly in detail, and then you can recollect what you studied earlier. The ovules after fertilization, they turn into seeds, and the ovary after fertilization turns into a fruit, right? So they are the most recent group of plants that have been found, and we can say they are the most recently evolved plants, right? So they are the most recently evolved plants, right? So what are we talking about? Basically these are the characteristics of angiosperms that we are discussing. So they are most recently evolved plants, and then they are abundant, means they are found in a good huge number all over on the earth, right? So they are found in abundance and they are conspicuous. Conspicuous means they are visible plants, right? So they are abundant and they are conspicuous, visible, right? And then they are also found in different types of habitats all over, in every type of environment except in sea, right? Now except in sea does not mean there are no plants found in sea, no angiosperms in seas. There are only two types of angiosperms that are found in seas. They are found in I'll write it here, present in all environments, right? So they are found in deserts, they are found on hills, on mountains, even at a height as on very very high hills also plants are found, and even in those frozen parts of the country, right? Even in the frozen parts of the country, like the Antarctica, even there flowering plants or angiosperms are found. So they're found in desert, in sea, not in abundance. There are only 2 species found in the sea, and then they are found in, of course, all widespread in all the other types of habitat, whether they are desert, whether they are the frozen mountains, or high hills, or the plains, etc. Right, so even in hot water springs, these are found. Right, so they are abundantly found, they are conspicuous, and they are found in almost all kinds of environment. Right, now I told you these are flowering plants, and when we studied about flower in the previous classes, in the lower classes, we would say, in the flowering plants, you studied about the flower, the structure of the flower, in which you must have studied that a plant it has the vegetative parts as well as the reproductive parts, right? So the vegetative part of the plant are the stems, the roots, the leaves, right? And the reproductive part of the plant is the flower, right? So these are flowering plants. That means having the flower being the reproductive part, that means the flower contains the reproductive parts of the plant also, right? So when we studied about the flower, we talked about the worlds of flower, right? In which your teacher in your lower classes must have explained about the 4 worlds of the flower, right? So a flower has a complete flower has 4 worlds. Right? I won't say that all the flowers will have all the 4 worlds. A complete flower has the 4 worlds. Starting with the outermost are the sepals, green in color, generally green in color, right? Since they're green in color, so they photosynthesize also, right? And they protect the flower during the bud condition, right? Inner to that are the petals. I'm not going to discuss all these 4 worlds too much in detail because they've already been taught in the lower classes. Then there are the petals, right, which are colorful. Generally, they are colorful. They are brightly colored. They are scented. They are nectar glands that are present, so that it attracts the insects for, the smell and the nectar that is present, that attracts the insects, so that helps with pollination also. So those are the petals. Then comes the stamen. The male part of the plant is the stamen, and then comes the pistil. Right. So the whole group of stamens together are the androecium, and many pistils together is the gynoecium. So the innermost word is the female reproductive part of the plant, that is the pistil. Now coming to the male reproductive part, that is the stamen. If we look at a stamen, the stamen is made up of the anther and the filament, right? So stamen has the anther, it has a connective over here, and this is the filament, right? So it has the anther and it has the filament, and this is the stamen, right? This part in the center is known as the connective, and if the anther is cut transversely, we will see that there are 4 chambers, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4 chambers, and inside these 4 chambers are found the pollen grains, right? The male gametes of a flower. They are the pollen grains which are found in the anther, right? Then talking about the pistil also is made up of the stigma, the style, and the ovary, right? Inside the ovary are found the seeds. Inside the ovary are the seeds, right? So this is the stigma. This part is called the style, right? This is the ovary, and these are the ovules, right? And this is the pistil. Right, now what happens during pollination? What is pollination? The transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, right? So the pollen grains at the time of pollination, they come out from the anther and they fall on the stigma, right? The stigma is sticky, and so the pollen grains, they absorb some juices of the stigma. A pollen tube is formed, and there are many pollen grains that fall, and out of that only one is able to reach the ovary and then into the ovule, right? And after that, fertilization takes place, right? So this is the structure of the stamen, the male reproductive part of the flower, and the pistil, that is the female reproductive part of the plant. Now pollination, that means transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma, takes place through various agencies. So wind could be one agency, water, insects, birds, etc. These are the different agencies. You see, there are some birds, there are some animals who eat the fruit and they drop the that is seed dispersal, and especially when these insects and the butterflies, etc., when they come to visit the flowers, the anthers, the pollen grains, they stick to them, and when they visit another flower, they drop the pollen grains, and that is how the pollen grains can be transferred, right? So that is the pollen grain. And now if we look at the structure of the pollen grain, right, the structure of the pollen grain, which I will just draw here. The pollen grain is made up of, the pollen grain has a layer here. There is another layer, right? And this is the exine part, right? So the pollen grain has this outermost layer which is known as the exine, this inner layer which is the intine, right? And then this part where the exine does not cover or join, this is known as the germ pore, right? So this is the external structure of the pollen grain, and then you will see that there is a generative nucleus that is present, right? So that is the generative nucleus that is present, and then the outermost part is the here there is one structure present which is the tube nucleus that is present. This is the tube nucleus. This is the generative nucleus that is present, right? So that is the structure of the pollen grain. And then what happens is, if you look at the structure of the pollen grain, the pollen grains, these are tiny and they're very, very small in size, that is present, and these pollen grains in number, they fall on the stigma, right? So that is the pollen grain, and this outermost part, this is known as the tube cell. So this is the structure of the pollen grain, which is the male gamete, right? Now this falls on the stigma of the female reproductive part of the flower, right? So now what happens is, the moment this falls on the stigma, as I told you, it absorbs certain juices, and then the exine, it ruptures, and this germ pore that you see, the intine of the germ pore, it extends and it forms a kind of a tube, right? So the intine extends and it forms a kind of a tube which is known as the pollen. This is the pollen tube, right? And in the pollen tube you will find there are either 2 elements or there may be 3 elements that are present, right? So not in all, but in many it happens that these 2 elements, these are the male, we can say the gametes, the structures that actually fuse with the egg cell, right? They are the male gamete, and this is the tube nucleus.
Right.
Right, so these are the male gametes, the tube nucleus, and that is the pollen grain with the pollen tube that is formed, and this pollen tube, it extends and reaches the ovule, right? When it reaches the ovule, there the fertilization takes place. And when it enters the ovule also has its own specific structure, right? The structure of the ovule is also very important for you to know. So I'll draw the structure of the ovule also here, and for that I need to erase all this. The ovule inside has the embryo sac present, right? So talking about the structure of the ovule, right, now there is another raphe that is present over here. That is the ovule. Inside the ovule, we find is an embryo sac that is present. Inside the ovule is the embryo sac, and this embryo sac is the structure where the actual fertilization takes place. Right, so these are the structures that are present inside the embryo sac. Right, now this part, okay, let's start with this. This is the funicle part of the ovule. Right, these layers are the integuments of the ovule. This opening is known as the micropyle. Right, that is the micropyle. Very, very tiny opening. That is the micropyle. And the so this end is known as the micropylar end of the ovule, and the opposite end is known as the chalazal end of the ovule, right? So that is the we can say it is the chalaza of the ovule, right? Now if when we see the structure, now this is the embryo sac. So what happens is the pollen tube, it enters through the micropylar end, through the micropyle, and it has to enter the embryo sac for fertilization to take place, right? So inside the embryo sac, if you see the structures, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 elements that are present inside the embryo sac, right? Now these 3 elements that are present towards the chalazal end, these 3 elements are known as the antipodal cells, right? These are known as the antipodal cells. Now you must remember that the antipodals are present towards the chalazal end, right? And towards the micropylar end, the central structure, this central one, there are 3 elements here. Out of this, the central one is the main oospore, we can say. Oospore or the egg cell, right? The main female gamete, the fusion which will lead to the formation of zygote, right? So that is the oospore, and these 2, oospore you can see is slightly taller, right? And on the either sides of the oospore, these structures that are present, they are known as synergids, right? Again, to keep in mind, you must know that this is the egg apparatus. This together, since the egg cell is present, this is known as the egg apparatus, right? So the egg apparatus is present towards the micropylar end, and the antipodals are present towards the chalazal end. And this is the structure of the ovule, right, in which we see the integuments. The small opening is the micropyle, so this is the micropylar end. Opposite to the micropylar end is the chalazal end. Inside you see the structure which is known as the embryo sac. In this we see that the embryo sac is in the 8-celled state structure, right? So the antipodals are towards the chalazal end, the synergids are towards the micropylar end, and in the center here you see these are there two structures, two elements. These are known as the polar nuclei, right? So these are present. These are present in the central part, right? These polar nuclei, they fuse to form a secondary nucleus. Secondary nucleus, right? So the secondary nucleus is made up of two elements, that is the two polar nuclei, right? Now what happens is the pollen tube enters and now fertilization takes place. One thing very special about the angiosperms is that only in angiosperms there is double fertilization that takes place. Fertilization is the fusion of a male and a female gamete, right? So there are two fusions that take place, right? Now what are these two fusions that take place, because of which double fertilization is a characteristic feature over here, is that at this time, of course, by then as I drew the diagram of the pollen grain with the tube, the pollen tube, in which you saw that there are three elements that are present. So what happens in that is that in a pollen grain, the nucleus it grows larger in size, and then you see that it is towards one side of the pollen grain the nucleus was found, right? And the protoplast of the pollen grain, it forms two unequal cells, right? It forms two unequal cells, and the small one is known as the generative cell and the large one is known as the tube cell. If you remember, I drew the structure, and inside this is the part inside the intine, right? So this was the generative cell, and this whole structure was labeled as tube cell, right? So the tube cell, if you see, the protoplasm is divided into two unequal parts, right? The larger part is the tube cell and the smaller part is the generative cell, right? So that is formed inside the pollen grain, and now, as I told you, it enters the generative cell. In some divides into two, so they may contain three elements or maybe only two elements. So we are talking about two male gametes. The generative cell, it divides into, and this takes place prior to the dehiscence of the anther, splitting of the anther to release the pollen grains, right? Now post-pollination, or pollination has taken place, and now the pollen grains are there on the stigma of the pistil, right? So there what happens is the pollen tube is formed, and now it enters the embryo sac, right? Now when it enters the embryo sac, I told you the egg apparatus towards the micropylar end, right? There are two middle polar nuclei which fuse to form the secondary nucleus, and then the antipodals towards the chalazal end, right? Now let's understand the function of the synergids. They just provide nutrition to the growing embryo once the fertilization has taken place, and after fertilization the antipodals, they degenerate, right? Now the two male gametes enter the embryo sac, right? So one male gamete fuses with the secondary nucleus, right? The other male gamete fuses with the egg cell, right? So there are two fusions or two fertilizations, we can say, that is taking place inside the embryo sac. Two male gametes have entered. One fuses with the secondary nucleus, the other fuses with the egg cell. Now the one that fuses with the egg cell, this one, together after fusion, after fertilization, it forms the zygote. right? And this part, it forms the endosperm, right? Endosperm. Now, this particular fusion of the secondary nucleus and the male gamete is known as triple fusion. By triple fusion, there are three elements that have fused. One male gamete and the other two polar nuclei. So three elements have fused. So triple fusion. And here, of course, this is the proper fertilization. That is the formation of zygote takes place, right? So this is known as double fertilization, and this was discovered by Navas-Chin in 1898. The scientist who found the double fertilization was Navas-Chin, right? In 1898, right? So in 1898, this was discovered by the scientist known as Navas-Chin, right? So double fertilization means two fertilization. What are the two fertilization? One is the generative fertilization and the second is the vegetative fertilization, right? So this fertilization to form a zygote is the generative fertilization, and the fertilization to form endosperm is the vegetative fertilization, right? So this leads to the triple fusion, the vegetative fertilization. It forms the triploid primary endosperm, and the generative fertilization leads to the formation of the zygote, right? So that's about the angiosperms, and in the next class we will very briefly talk about the alternation of generations, right? So that's about it for today. Complete your work, the questions that I give you, and finish your assignment as well. All right.